Good evening or good day, dear viewers, and a very warm welcome to today's series Visite. I received numerous letters again this week, and it is so nice that this appointment has also become a solid one for many people, just like for me. And I would also like to thank you very much for the really positive feedback and for sharing the programs. And it also accounts for the diversity of the topics that come to me through your inquiries. I was able to get to know one or the other personally, and many thanks at this point. Today I want to process a request that comes from a grandma. This is Anita, and Anita, you write that your 16-month-old grandson is already incredibly burdened with an allergy to eggs, peanuts, gluten. He always has red spots on his skin and, above all, repeated shortness of breath. And you're asking about causality here with vaccination and if there is a solution for it. Of course there is a solution, and of course you have to help these children in that direction. And years ago, I actually had children's consultation hours once a month, and I always made sure that the mothers came or the fathers and took grandma with them. Because what is very important for the children now, a grandmother must also know and implement, and not only a mum, because the little ones depend on what we give them, how we raise them. And now this email is just a fact. This email doesn't tell me now how was the child born, how was the pregnancy, how is mum, does mum have amalgam fillings, did the mother perhaps have them removed just before the pregnancy? Or there used to be this incredible condition during pregnancy. So is this small child already burdened through the umbilical cord even though it has not yet come into the world? These high toxic loads do something to our children, and you shouldn't underestimate that atopy and allergies and neurodermatitis and asthma also on this level in a question, that these toxic things alone have a significant impact on our immune system. Our immune system has to be really built up for newborns. We have an innate, the humoral immunity, but we also have an adaptive, that we learn every day in exchange. And if a child is still so small, then the immune system has a lot to do. When eggs are eaten or peanuts or gluten, it reacts completely unadaptively with an overreaction and allergy. And that is of course with a symptomatology that we feel sorry for. It's also about histamine. Histamine is a biogenic amine which is then released by the macrophages. But that gives the children these red spots, this flush, this itching, or even this shortness of breath, by constricting the bronchi. I couldn't read from the email now how long the baby was breastfed. Because the adaptation to life is actually much better if the children are breastfed for a long time. And this being breastfed for a long time means that they do not come into contact with a foreign allergen. And the foreign allergen for the children is very often a product that is offered as ready-to-eat food, as a substitute for breast milk, which is mostly based on cow's milk. And this cow's milk protein now creates inflammation in the gut and also creates an immunological memory against the milk protein. The intestines are then in a dramatic situation in that they do not accept this foreign protein. Blue-eyed children in particular are very, very sensitive. And I always advise mothers, no cow's milk products before the age of 6, so that this little immune system is not disturbed by foreign allergens and develops an incorrect reaction. It is therefore very important, and it can go well beyond the 6 years here, that the little one does not receive cow's milk and also no dairy products. This is very important, because the immune system is misdirected, and is again and again in the confrontation now with the allergen. Maybe before, it could still handle this confrontation in itself, but now with a second hit, with a renewed reaction, now it goes into defense. I don't want that. It's the same with gluten. Gluten is, of course, in grain. I see the little ones very often, they have croissants or a wheat roll. That's a catastrophe, because this gluten is all treated with glyphosate. It's an herbicide, and it also causes inflammation in the intestines, which is not good in a small immune system. And don't underestimate that 80% of immunity is in the intestinal mucous membranes, or on our mucous membranes in general. That causes upset there, and also the immune barrier between the gut and body is significantly disturbed. Then there is a lymphocytic inflammation, and the children respond with swollen lymph nodes and so on. So these are things that should mean a lot of relief for the little one at the moment. You didn't write milk, you wrote eggs, peanuts and gluten. But relieve the little one by not only taking away the eggs, the peanuts and the grain, but go over to rice, also go to rice milk, to coconut milk. On substitute food. I would almost go so far also at the moment, no sheep's and also no goat's milk as an alternative. This is the first thing. The second thing is that you address the vaccination. So he's 16 months old. That means we start very early, of course, from the 2nd month of life. And the Infanrix Hexa is a 7-fold vaccination, which of course has a lot of components, from hip to department, so diphtheria, pertussis, whooping cough, tetanus, via hepatitis and also via pneumococci. That means this 7-fold vaccination, and maybe the direction can just show this slide now. It already has aluminum hydroxide in it. This aluminum hydroxide is an absolute effect enhancers in vaccinations, which of course, if you already know what aluminum does for a newborn, what immunogenic disturbances go with it, and of course in a bit of brutality, repeated after 4 weeks and then again after a half year, that I have to say one should not underestimate the fact that not all children can withstand such a burden in the same way. The body doesn't know what to do with aluminum at all. It also does not have the possibility of detoxification, to drain the aluminum. And just what we don't see, which is responsible for the absolutely undisturbed development and self-regulation, this is our immune system. And our immune system is there to protect us. That means the immune system will always be ready 24 hours for our protection, but for that it needs to be able to act and juggle uncontrollably. And every immune cell that has done its job commits suicide for me, so that the next immune cells grow back. In my opinion, this is a very selfless and the greatest, shall I say, defense system that is subject to such great logistics, which we humans can hardly influence from the outside. What we need to do is realize that this immune system needs some time to develop slowly. And because of that, a child naturally needs a good, adapted confrontation with life. That's why they're allowed to stick their fingers in the ground and then they put their little fingers in their mouths. They have to build their own microbiome. They have to deal with life when they can crawl and grow and walk. They have to develop an adapted microbiology that makes them very strong from the immunological side. Because the body collects all of the information via the so-called dendritic cells and lymphocytes that the body is confronted with every day and then allows it to mature in the lymph nodes and creates a double assurance with every contact that it might be able to use one or the other to form antibodies. But these are incredibly large processes, and here in the context of this sevenfold vaccination, it is not possible for every child to do these tasks in this constellation, especially since also vaccines are bred on chicken eggs and various things, and of course there is also a very high allergy potential developed by vaccinations alone. The other thing is the polysorbate. You can see that underneath, it's just an emulsifier, E433, and that's in some flu vaccines anyway, but also in these kids' shots. It is genetically engineered, it can cross the blood-brain barrier, can also transport with it, and of course it also has a great danger with it for the health of these children. And I would be a little more reserved, now in this context here, to continue the whole vaccination concept until the little one has not really stabilized. Because one thing may not be a great burden for the other, if other things hadn't preceded it. In addition, of course, she did not write did he also react with a certain fever after vaccinations. Maybe there was paracetamol, which is very toxic to the liver. There are other ways to reduce fever in children, ferrum phosphoricum or by aconitis globules. These are things that ultimately present themselves with an allergy potential to the little one, but which you can now improve by significantly reducing the number of allergenic sources. And then, diagnostically, one should do the following things. A stool report, please. The laboratories Consignment or Biovis offer children's Khyber status. Also Symbia Farm, the Microecological Institute in Herborn. That is, this status of the current situation of the intestine shows us how is the mucosal immunity. Is there constant inflammation in which the body is involved? How does the liver, pancreas work? Does he have a good microenvironment or doesn't he? It is very important to see that these children are also screened for HPU. Do they excrete vitamin B6, zinc, manganese in the urine? It's just a normal laboratory test of urine. And I sometimes do a so-called immune status with the children. And you can see a lot here. How balanced is the immune system even at this age? Now you don't necessarily have to draw blood at this age. But everything you can do with stool and urine in the first place helps you a lot indirectly. Please also think about vitamin D for these children. They're still small, but they're also indoors a lot. They can be out in the stroller a lot at 16 months. But again and again, vitamin D deficiency can also play a major role. I would recommend you start discharging the vaccinations as well. You do that with True, the homeopathic remedy True in the D6 or D12, adjusted to age. Maybe also see a homeopath who will help in the direction of discharging these vaccinations. And then not only to deprive the child of animal protein in the form of milk and milk products, but please, and this is an appeal to all parents, reduce the sugar. Because the children have incredibly high B vitamin deficiencies, and sugar is the great B vitamin robber, our great nerve vitamins B6, B12. That means, you can also feed a child far less sugar. If I want to sweeten the tea, I can add some xylitol or isomaltulose. When I keep giving the kid treats and sweet cookies and chocolate and candy, I don't have to be surprised that a microflora is also overgrown by fungi in the intestine. And that's the most sensitive part about the little man. The gut is the root of the human plant and the skin always shows us the mirror. That means intervening in the whole immune process. Of course, you have to relieve the immune system on the one hand, so that it no longer needs these trained self-runs of an overreaction. And on the other hand, of course, make sure that a healthy immunity can continue to be rebuilt unencumbered. And that begins with the stability of a healthy intestinal microflora. And then I firmly believe that the little one is slowly getting better, when we adults accompany him lovingly. If we don't work with prohibitions, but with wonderful little alternatives. It is said that what someone does not know they do not miss if it becomes normal for them. And you can also bake a very nice, healthy, gluten-free bread. I would do that and not buy it pre-packaged somewhere. This is really not very, very tasty. And I think that you can then deal with things very well. I used to do something else with the kids. I made drops of own blood according to horses for them. Maybe you can find a homeopath or therapeutic naturopath in your area who does that. There, the autologous blood is potentiated. That means we confront the immune system with information where it is constantly confronted with fragments of information to which it is gently regulated. And the labor life therapy with 2L-allerg has an immunomodulating effect. And also there, when a capsule is opened, for the little ones you can almost divide that into 3 different doses. But in an immune system you can do nothing to strengthen it. That's an overreaction here. So please be careful. But one knows by influencing the allergy triggering factors, a gentle confrontation can change this rebuild of the immune system. And if you actually do these things for him very carefully, just in what you know today, and the body defines you very clearly with gluten and peanuts and eggs, but also remove the protein in the form of cow's milk and cow's milk products, I think then you'll be able to see how he doesn't itch that much anymore, how he eases up with his shortness of breath. Incidentally, the lungs and large intestine are closely related. That he isn't stressed, that he feels comfortable in his little skin, and that he tolerates these small initial difficulties very, very well at the beginning. And I would ask you to simply refrain from further vaccinations for now, and at a later point in time, maybe think about it again very, very consciously and very specifically, if so, what, and if so, by what and when. May I ask the director to show a slide with the side effects from this vaccine? And I don't want to pass a negative message here, I just want to say to you, maybe it'll do you good as parents to check one of those vaccination leaflet to know about the things you also risk with this vaccination. And you see that there are some things that happen right after the basic immunization, locally expressed in a very strong reddening. The children then often react with coughing, runny nose, bronchitis, skin inflammation, upper respiratory infections, viral infections. These are reactivations that take place because the immune system is of course also being challenged at the moment by this sevenfold vaccination. This goes as far as circulatory collapse. And you see down there it's written here as very rare, but I have to tell you quite honestly, the side effect part is observed only 3 to 5 days. There are no long-term post-vaccination observations listed here. And there are allergic reactions here, up to seizures and shock. Well, I just want to be able to show that again, so that you can also treat it with respect and give the little ones a bit of a chance now in this phase, also very responsibly, to be able to find your way back into balance somewhere. With this in mind, many thanks also to all those who are perhaps not in the situation at the moment, that they have a little grandchild. But it's nice that you're all interested. You're in conversation with people and you can exchange ideas, and medicine is one of the most beautiful fields to expand into. And such a body is worth it, and it is always and every hour grateful for that. What we recognize for it, leave for it, also refrain from, so that it can take care of us without any worries. With this in mind, I wish you all a wonderful week ahead, and I'm already looking forward to next Sunday. Thank you and goodbye.